All right, everybody. Welcome to Think Realty's monthly webinar. Here today with Templeview Capital, Mr. Ben Joannis, Mark Burch, two of the very best guys in the industry. Thank you all so much. This is the biggest webinar we've ever had, so I thank you all very much. I think that is a credit to the topic that we're going to be discussing today and really the market where we are. This is the time to take advantage and find opportunity, and Ben and Mark are going to show you exactly how to do that. Real quick though, Think Realty, we exist as really the bridge, the conduit between real estate investors and the real estate professionals. So everything from fix and flip, hard money, private money, buy and hold, commercial, lending. We are all things alternative to the traditional stock, bonds, mutual funds. We believe that real estate and alternative investing is the true way to build not only wealth for yourself, but wealth for generations. So get in the game, thinkrealty.com, become a free member, get access to all of our education platforms, Think Realty Magazine, the webinars, the podcast, anything and everything to keep the information and more importantly, the people that are doing these deals in your network. I want to make you aware our next conference will be March 28th and 29th in Phoenix, Arizona. Great time of year to be in Phoenix. It's also one of the best markets in the United States. I'll put some information in the chat, but make your plans to be there. thinkrealty.com. Click on events, get your tickets now for our Phoenix event, March 28th and 29th. Very excited as well for our sister organization, the American Association of Private Lenders, the biggest private lending association in the United States, bar none. That's not an opinion, that's a fact. With the biggest and best private lending conference in the United States, Caesars Palace, Las Vegas, November 12th and 13th. Make your plans to be there. We're going to have 55 vendors, 700 attendees. This is the place where you're going to find extreme amounts of deal flow and help you and have a very prosperous, not only 2024, but every year and beyond. So I'll be putting this information in the chat. Make sure you guys make plans to be at Think Realty. Make sure you make plans to be at AAPL. But without further ado, I want to bring on my friends, Ben Joannis, Mark Burch from Templeview. Guys, I've been looking forward to this webinar for a long time, and I think that people have been as well, based on how many we have joining us today. It's always a pleasure to have you guys. You guys have been longtime supporters of Think Realty. See you guys at every event that I go to. So you guys are true experts in this subject. So appreciate you guys very much. I'm going to log off here, but I'll be in the chat if anybody needs anything. We'll say this. And if you have questions real quick, put them in the Q&A versus the chat. Makes it a little bit easier for us to follow along. And we'll save those questions for the end. So without further ado, take it away, gentlemen.
Hey, Kurt, thank you so much. We are so excited to be here. And this is about dropping some knowledge on you, giving you guys some value, and really sharing with you how we failed as investors and how we prospered as investors. And if you want to, right now, we want to go over a little bit about each of our backgrounds. Those QR codes are how you can get me directly, talk with me, share a deal with me, possibly get a loan from me. However you want to network with me, you can scan the QR code. There's going to be one for Ben in just a second. I got my start in real estate just out of college, went right. One of my buddies was like, hey, you'd be good at selling mortgages. And if you look at the time of the year, it was 2003. So if you don't remember that was the all-time low interest rates, our first go around. And so we were order taking. I was answering the phone, learning about mortgages. I was like, man, this is so easy. And then it kind of pushed me over to First Franklin Financial. One of my other buddies was working there. Hey, Mark, you'd be really good, selling to different lenders and brokers. And that's what that was. It was wholesale mortgage. If you look at the time of year, that was leading into our beautiful crash, our real estate crash. Everything that I did led me to the next endeavor, the next thing that I took the step in or a chance in or a risk in. And I learned from each thing that I was a part of. So when I was at First Franklin, this was the year of the subprime mortgage rate, like if you have a Blockbuster card, I'll give you a loan, something stupid like that, right? Who remembers Nina or Ninja loans, no income, no asset, all this stuff. That was a really good experience to have because of the way the lending world worked at that point. If anyone's seen The Big Short, we were living The Big Short when it hit the rock bottom. If you see my next endeavor, it was an asset manager, BSI Financial. This is where I learned how to manage an asset. Take a a property and learn how that property was going to be sold either as is or repaired and get contractor bids. At one point, I had over 215 properties listed across the country as an asset manager, and I would be managing real estate agents. I would be managing, marketability, why it did online and things like that. So this kind of got me my start in fix and flip, because at that point, you always take, and we're going to talk about how we jump into this and just get your start. And that's exactly what I did. We found a deal and we moved in when I started the MMB Realty fix and flip business. We had then, when you get in a fix and flip, you typically will graduate into getting some rentals. I've done about 26 flips personally. I've got 3 in process right now. And this isn't talking about anything that I'm managing from any of my other businesses. This is just me personally. I've got 12 doors, a couple of multifamily buildings. I've got licensed to be a real estate agent. I do, probably between $5 and $6 million a year. So I'm really tuned into my local market. It does allow me to leverage, my relationships, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Got my start with Templeview when we were at the great people behind Templeview is MCM Capital, and they were a part of the asset management job. And we saw all of the people making all of this money. And what was the common factor? It was the loan, right? They needed to get financing for this loan. So when I moved into Templeview Capital, it really opened my eyes and opportunity because of the leverage behind what I did. And from there, I was able to, explore short-term rentals. I have a passion for that, and I have a short-term rental company and a way to do it. And my partner in crime today is my good friend, Ben Johannes, and I'll let him kind of take it over.
Hey guys, Ben Johannes here. Unlike Mark, I guess I quickly go over my background before I get into the meat and potatoes of this. My background primarily has been in financial services. After I graduated college, went right into, watched, I guess, prior to Wolf of Wall Street, but I believe it was A Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith, and decided, I want to be a stockbroker. I get a job, me, a buddy of mine, he gets me a job at Merrill Lynch. That was right around, I would say 2007, 2006. And I'm there for like a year and a half, then boom, big crash happens, right? And from there, I just bounced around from company to company, which is why I haven't really listed the whole list of them. It was Merrill Lynch, it was E-Trade, it was Fidelity, it was MetLife, it was JP Morgan Chase. I did the whole rat race thing, chasing that one dream. And it wasn't until I had met one of my attorneys, I guess a client of mine, or attorney. He would come to the branch where I worked. It would come make just massive deposits every month. And, I went up to him once and started talking to him because that was my job, right? I was at that point, I was a branch rep working as a small business representative, if you will. And I started talking to him. It was in New York City, and we started chatting. And he told me, at first I thought maybe the deposit first for his clients. Then he eventually told me, no, actually, there were buildings I owned and they were in the Bronx. And I started asking more questions. He told me how he got them. He bought them, using creative financing, fixed them up, refinanced, and really piqued my interest. And at that time, I was fortunate enough, I'm married, and my wife did very well for herself, and she was pregnant. So I decided to take that opportunity and stay home, be a stay-at-home dad, quit my job. And in that time, I had some savings and I dumped it into real estate education, which is right around 2014. My daughter just turned 9. And from there, I never looked back. I started, I got mentors, I got coaches, I did the fortune builders, I did everything under the sun. It's more, I guess, for most of you guys who are in this chat, it might be similar to your experiences. I did all of that, right? And my first deal, finally did, my first deal after that, then I became, wholly known as a real estate investor, and it kind of catapulted into me getting my real estate license. Got figured as an opportunity for me to make money. I eventually transitioned and moved it over to Alto Realty, same as Mark. In 2017, I got my GC license, and some stuff we're going to talk about, experiences, right? The good and bad of this business, the reason why I got some of this stuff. In 21, I got my mortgage license, and I currently, as an investor, I currently hold about 9 doors, and it's primarily because I sold a ton of them during the 2020, COVID boom. I sold them. I was primarily a flipper, and I probably touched roughly 40 plus properties in various fashion, either flips, wholesale, short sales, you know, in various ways. I'd love to, I mean, I'm very excited to go over all this stuff with you. As Mark stated, the QR code is listed right next to my bio here. Take a picture of it. Feel free to reach out after the call. We'd be more than happy to get into more details about this whole process. But Mark, take it away.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, look, we're not here. We just want to show you our backgrounds just so you can see where we're coming from. Speaking of knowledge, we have a lot of real life experiences. You're about to hear some of the big failures we've had and a lot of the big wins. In fix and flip, there is typically 3 different areas you have to be proficient in. And just so you know, everyone on this webinar, we are not having this PowerPoint the whole time. We're just doing this to lead into our actual talk and our value add. This is just something for 2 more slides, and then we're going to be talking to you real. But anyway, your loan, your financing, the money really is one of the most important things. There's 3 very important things. This is, in my one of the biggest failures people have is just not accounting for the money. So when you have a lender in your back corner, someone that provides leverage for you, if you have someone that just likes the return on money to be able to invest in something that's proven, listen, money matters, and it's so important and so intricate into your success. The marketability and valuation. So your real estate agents, you know, your partnerships with people on boots on the ground to try to get deals, you know, the ability to actually sell your flip, is a really big, and to be right. I think that's one of the main things that, you know, Ben and I will talk this in just a little bit later about how you have to be right about the valuation of your house, how not to overcompensate or overestimate or underestimate some of the things that you got to be proficient on. One of the most, in our opinion, the biggest failure rate is having the wrong partnerships leading into your contractor and renovations and getting that wrong. And so we're going to talk through that. But based on us being the sponsor at Templeview, I think it's very important to highlight some of the main reasons why that lender background. And again, we're not here to product dump and tell you about everything, but I think it's very important to see why and how Templeview as a partner can really propel you to be successful in this space. And again, this QR code, if anyone scans it, you'll get access to the marketing. You get access to, you know, everything that we're putting out today. So that's that QR code. Ben, take it away of some of these great guidelines and things from Templeview.
Yes, thanks, Mark. So as Mark stated, this isn't, again, I'm sure our management would love us to just talk about this stuff, but really, I think the purpose of this call, as Mark stated, is really about understanding do's and don'ts, fix and flipping, not just, what Templeview offers. But to quickly go over what we do, Templeview is a great company. I actually borrow from Templeview as an investor as well. Our product line, we lend nationwide in about 46 states. We provide ground up, fix and flip, DSCR, bridge loans, strictly on the 1 to 4 residential type properties. No income, no asset verification. This is purely collateral type based loan, so you don't have to worry about your W-2s or anything like that. And if you have experience, which what really sets us apart, our let's say bread and butter product, that's the one we do the most business out of, is the fix and flip one, where we provide up to 90% of purchase, 100% of construction. We escrow all the monthly payments into the loan. So if you're an experienced investor doing multiple projects at the same time, it's a great way to manage your cash flow. So, and also, as I was saying, also, if you have experience, we also can upfront you the construction draw. So if you imagine you don't have to make monthly payments and we'll give you the draws up front, you can be potentially running 2, 3, 4 projects at the same time if you do a really good job managing your budget. Outside of that, terms go up to 24 months and our rates are very competitive in the space, primarily based on experience. The more you have, the cheaper the money is going to be. And outside of that, we go as low as high. We have our loan amounts as high as $4 million. As I said, as Mark stated, please click the QR code, learn more about this stuff, and reach out to us directly if you want to get more details about this product. But as I said, this is not the point of this conversation.
Again, partnerships, and we're going to talk about the leveraging of what we have in all the experience that we showed you before. We want to go through this, and flipping houses, like we talked about, is not easy. In fact, I think some of the most important things is to hear failures, because we will talk through this. A failure we like to say it doesn't mean failure. It's a word called tuition. right? When you fail at something, it's because now you're going to learn why that is. And I think people can relate a little bit on failures. Ben, your biggest failure, I'm very curious because you've kind of told this story to me, but I think it connects so many different dots on just in general. And we're going to also take through his worst deal here and then, talk about how he could have made that deal profitable. And trust me, we have some other good tidbits out of this. And during this conversation, you guys might hear something, you might not know what something means. We don't want to overlook that. So just put the question or something in the chat. And trust me, at the end of this webinar, we're going to address your questions. So just go ahead and do that while we're giving our presentation. So Ben, tell me about that failure, the big one there.
So yeah, I mean, let me preface this, right? So one thing I remember learning when I first started, and I'm a big believer in using mentors, coaches, and partners, and learning from others in the industry, because being a flipper, it can feel like you're on an island. So one thing they said to me was, if you haven't been sued or if you haven't lost money, you haven't been doing this long enough. And I can say today, after about 9 years of doing this, I've had both, right? So my first, the one deal I can think that comes to mind, and I've had a few, but the one deal that comes to mind, I was mentioning it to Mark before, is a property that I bought off of a bended sign that I had on my truck, right? And it was a great deal. The seller actually was a guy who went to my gym, and he took a picture of I have bended signs on my truck. Ben buys houses and apartment buildings. It's bright, ugly, disgusting. My wife hates driving my truck just because of it. But again, I bought houses off that sign. It's cheap marketing and it works. So anyways, he sees the sign, takes a picture of it, doesn't reach out to me for another year. And great deal. I mean, when he calls me, I go check out the property, and turns out it's right down the street from where my parents live. So I'm like, amazing, this was meant to be. And he comes to me, this is 2016, 2017, when prices were, fairly reasonable. So we thought, right? So anyways, he offers, he's like, listen, take a look at the building. There are 2-3 families right next to each other, over 100 years old, which is very common in my market. So I go take a look at them, and he's like, listen, give me 200 grand a piece and $400,000 total for both units, for both properties, and it's yours. And that's still a great number. But again, in this business, if you don't ask, you don't get, right? So I go in and just try. I'm like, listen, there's a lot of stuff wrong with this. The building's really old, needs a lot of work, yada, 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 whole song and dance. And he takes 50 grand off each of them right off the top. So $150,000 a piece for 2-3 families in a it's in a very affluent town in New Jersey, which is, again, a fantastic deal in and itself. So I figured the guy's hurting, why not ask? Again, if you don't ask, you don't get. I'm like, well, would you take a little bit more off? And he just snapped right then and there. It's like, listen, you know what you're doing. You know you're getting a good deal. If you don't want to, just say so. I just, proceeded and got it. And in my mind, I'm like, this is a great deal. The numbers are fantastic. It's all going to work out. And I probably done maybe 3 flips before that. So I thought, I knew my stuff, I knew what I was doing. So I went in there. First and foremost, that deal should have taken about 9 to 12 months. Ended up taking almost 18 to 24 months. I had tenant issues. Took me 6 months to get a tenant out. And when I finally got her out, walked into the place, you have to walk in there with a hazmat suit. I had another tenant, basically, after I renovated the place, and I thought initially about keeping it. So I put these tenants in there, and I was part of this program from New York City, and they were paying, the whole rent up front, which I was like, this is amazing. At 12 months rent up front, I don't have to worry about collection. This is all exciting stuff to me. That tenant, which was a 65-year-old lady, turned out to be some massive drug lord, where there was a SWAT team and breaking into the house and stuff. And I had another tenant who was a senile lady and kept calling me saying there's people in the house during construction. There was one time I literally got there and I was waiting outside 11 o'clock at night, waiting outside. As I'm talking to her on the phone, she says, I'm hearing people. I'm sitting in my truck. There, I don't hear no sound. I'm walking in the house. I'm like, do you hear them now? Do you hear them knocking? Oh my God, they're knocking so loud right now. You should come and get me. I had to involve social services. It became just a nightmare. And every step of the way, I'm finding problems with the building. My contractor takes me for almost 60 grand. The house was moved from one house to the street to the other. There were structural issues. And finally, when I dealt with all of that, I'm ready to sell the building. Again, I'd mentioned this is New England. This is New Jersey, North Jersey. So underground oil tanks are a very common thing. especially in older buildings. So when I bought the building, there were 4 tanks on the ground, and they were presumed to be decommissioned, which is something that they do. They used to do back in the day. Now it's required just to have them removed, but they would cut the top, go in there with a squeegee, drain all the oil, and fill them with sand and cover them back up. That was done probably 16 years ago, right? 16, 20 years ago. And in my mind, understanding, gravity and how that works. And if it's oil comes from the ground, if it's ever leaking, it's probably going to come back in, and yada, yada, yada. I'm thinking I'm fine, right? Plus I got the permits from the city. Everything's okay. So I put the property on the market, finally trying to get rid of this thing. And buyer requires to have the tanks removed. Again, in my head, shouldn't be a big deal. I have, going back to, one of the points we're talking about today, having a strong network of people. So I had tank contractors, oil tank contractors in my back pocket, guys I've done business with, people I knew personally would do me favors. So I had a group, a particular guy I knew, he was the owner of the business, asked him to help me out. We go check it out, thinking it's probably going to cost me maybe $1,200 a tank or something like that. You can smell the oil from down the street. That's how bad it was.
Wow, man. This is ridiculous, Ben.
Yeah.
So when you ended up selling it, I mean, did you make money? Did you lose money?
No, I lost money. I definitely lost money. I probably ended up in negative close to, if I count the money the contractor took from me, at least 60 grand loss on this.
Okay. And Ben, if you do fortune builders, what do you pay for like the highest fortune biller, like the builders, like what do you pay for that? Like, do you pay?
It's a tiered. I haven't looked into this in a while, but it's a tiered system from what I understand. It's upwards of like 100, like 50 to 100 grand or something like that. You pay to be part of their mastermind group.
Well, look, man, you just got a $60,000 tuition bill. And this is what we talk about. In that space, he got this thing sold. He learned so many lessons along the way. And, if you guys could take anything away from his failure there, is a good deal, too good to be true. This guy obviously wanted to sell this thing, is it too good to be true?
He knew what he had. He knew what he had. But to me, though, again, going back to that, one thing I will say, if I had 2020, obviously is always, in hindsight is always 2020. If I had to do it all over again, I probably would have done a better job managing the tenant situation, but have better tenants, because this was a great asset. If I had a crystal ball, understood what was going to happen now, if I'd held that exact asset, I probably would have sold it for almost double what I ended up selling it back then. Again, I'm not trying to look back, but it's one of those things with real estate, and something one of my mentors taught me. Even if you have a dog, right? If you hold it long enough, you'll make your money back eventually.
You make your money over time. And that's
one of my real estate.
That Ben, amen, my friend. That is absolutely correct. I have my story is a little bit different. We'll be relatively quick because we have a lot of content, but I had bought saw a property off market. It was not a lot of money, but it was in Baltimore City, decent block. We had a couple of buildings not that far from this one. We're talking maybe you can walk to the other buildings, and we had a lot of success there. This building I thought was great because it was next to a school. It was a dead end street. You can get to this building, and it was by the school. It was a nice block when you walked it. We would go there, around 11 a.m. a couple of times, went there at 12. We closed. I think we signed at the property at 1, we closed and we were done. And then we started doing the renovation on this thing. And sure enough, I will tell you, drug dealers, they do not wake up until about 2:30, 3 o'clock. So what I didn't realize is, for me, I thought it was a great block and there was a school that you could walk to, but drug dealers liked it because it was a dead end block and you could only go down one way, and you had to do a 3-point turn to go back the other way. So if I could tell you anything, listen, research the property, get there. Go there at different times of the day, especially if you could be in a questionable area when you're trying to do a flip. Know your area, know everything you can know. Like for Ben's point earlier, if you did a little bit more research on some of the tanks and some of the things that you could have done prior to, you will be more successful in your flips. And that goes to sharing another story. I think there's going to be a lot that you can take out of your network and your partnerships. I think a lot of people get concerned in flipping to make the money. It's all mine. I'm going to do it on my own. and you really, on the newbies on this line, if you've not flipped a property, do not do the first one on your own. Partner with someone with experience. Going back to what we talked about with tuition, it is so important to leverage your relationships in a manner that wants them to do more business with you in the future. I get a lot of my short-term rentals because they know, and they know me. I've closed on everything I said I would close in any contract I write to that person. And these could be dogs of properties I've closed. Whatever you tell someone, no matter how bad it gets, always, I go by this line. You tell good news quick, but bad news quicker. That is so important in this space, to set expectations to anyone you're doing business with, real estate agent, a contractor, someone that, a wholesaler you have a relationship with that might give you the first look at a deal. Capital partners are probably the most important. Mm-hmm. Anybody that's given you money and trusted you with money to make them a return, you have to be upfront about everything. Being trustworthy in this space is so important. And it does allow you to be more successful. And we'll go over a couple of those things, and we'll deal with that with some of our contract management we'll talk about down the road. But I think it's really good to tie all this together, Ben, with maybe your first deal. Did you do it by yourself? Tell me how you did it and how it was successful in your mind.
My first deal, similar thing. I just started, didn't really have much money since I dumped it all in education. And when I finally found a deal, and I utilized my background in financial services to go out there and raise the cash, because I'm like, well, if I have such a good deal, I have to be able to find the money. I kept asking everybody, and the answer was always no. You've never done a deal before. Why would I actually lend you money? And finally, I found this guy who felt, it's funny enough, even my mentor, the guy I paid $10,000 to educate me, didn't want to do the deal with me. He's like, well, I don't do deals with newbies. I'm like, really? All right. Okay. That's funny. But anyway, so eventually found this guy. He lived in California and basically offered to be my gap lender on this particular transaction. Came in, worked with another hard money lender, paid 15 and 5, right? The good old days, which are, I guess, coming back. Anyways, so we did the deal together, and because he offered to do it with me, because he had experience, he had offered to do it on a project management capacity. Where he lived in California, he would insist that I go out there and do everything myself. I'm not going to put a penny up, but I'm giving him my time, right? So my job was to deal with the contractors, go to the house every day, deal with everything, really get the true experience of a flipper without risking my own capital, which to me at the time was the best case scenario. So one of the things that stuck most to me when what he told me was, we had to get bids for a siting. He's like, Ben, go out there and get me 10 bids. And at first I was like, really? That's ridiculous. Why so many? And the way he explained it to me, he's like, listen, the more you ask, the better you get at asking. The better you get at asking, the better the price is going to be. All right. And I noticed that because the first 3 or 4 bids we got were like the fancy trucks coming up. These guys, they thought they knew it all. They walked in, gave me a crazy number, and walked out. Then the next 3 guys were probably one of the bids that we should have chosen, but they came in just at the right price. Now, as an experienced investor, I understood that. But back then, I was like, oh, man, let's go with the cheapest guy. He's like, you sure? Let's go with the cheapest guy. So we went in the last 3 or 4 bids were the cheapest, and it turned out to be the most headache because these contractors, we have to go back to them, have them come back and fix stuff, and paying more, and so on and so forth. At the end of that deal, I think I ended up making, after everything, took 11 months of my time, and I made $2,000, right? And some of you might be like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. Really? All this time for $2,000? But to me now, thinking back on it, it was probably the best $2,000 I've ever earned, only because it was pure education. The knowledge I gained from that experience is still servicing me today, right? It's almost 10 years later, I'm still talking about it. So I think, that's my first deal. And I would highly recommend newbies, specifically newbies, to not be afraid to partner with somebody, even if it's going to cost you on the split, because the cost of education is built in.
Yeah, and risk matters, right? So you're also leveraging your risk to someone else. Mm-hmm. And let me tell you this, and even speaking from a lender's background, a good deal will always get funded, no matter if it's truly a good deal. You will find people to partner with you perfect strangers when you go to your local meetup and you put your hand up and say, I got this deal. People will want to be a part of that deal just because there is upside. And don't be greedy on those first couple of deals. My background with the being from asset management, knowing around a lot of real estate agents and REO agents, and I'm having some default access to default from other sources. I was able to find a lot of my flips from my partnerships. Even the first one I did, and I call it the Tony Soprano loan. It was 15 and 5, just like you said, Ben. And they wrote the loan out to myself, to Mark Burch personally, which I know that is actually probably illegal. Doesn't matter. We did all the calculations on this deal. It was in a really good part of Montgomery County, a place called Columbia, Maryland. And, we got it from it was a ResNet. Basically, it was a bad reverse mortgage, and so it was dated. So it was a complete gut job. And we put the 15 and 5 in our pro forma, and it looked like the numbers at that point didn't matter because we still would make a profit, even accounting for all those different things that we were dealing with there. And I will tell you, when you put this in a perspective of am I going to make money or not make money, it doesn't really matter what you're paying. And that's why if you leverage that risk to someone else, a partner, or someone that's done it before, or an agent that brought you a deal and they want to be a part of it, and they're going to be able to help you with this, find out what you do good and maximize that to someone else, because maybe they don't do that well. I know for me, I was always the money guy, and all the deals I would do, I would be able to have the partnerships with the lender, of course, with being at Templeview, have access to quick cash, have the ability to leverage that over multiple projects. And that's what I was really good in. And so I take that and I leverage that, and I get to the next step or the next deal based on where I come from the lending aspect. Now, Ben, what we also wanted to talk about from my perspective was finding those deals through other different sources. You come from a different source of finding your deals. Let's talk a little bit about how you found some of your deals, and maybe some of those wins, and maybe some of those losses as well.
Absolutely, yeah. So yeah, I mean, most of my deals now, because I came from that, I educated myself on the real estate investing side. I went to all the seminars, did the guru circuit and all that stuff. So I've tried everything, right? I do mailers sometimes. I'll do, the bandit signs. I'll have them in front of all the houses I buy. I'll do like I have a magnet on my car. I'll knock on doors. I found deals via door knocking. The 3 deals I bought, I guess I bought 3 deals off my truck, probably 2 deals off my sign. I have a website. I bought 2 great deals from last year. And basically it's a big mishmash of stuff. A lot of it though kind of ties back to what you just mentioned. It's networking. I network with everybody, even though I'm a licensed as a real estate agent. If one of my agents in my network bring me a deal, and I have a very basic rule, and they all know it. You bring me a deal, it's your listing when I'm done with the work. If I'm flipping it, it's yours. If I'm listing it for rentals, that's yours. That's the relationship I have with them. So they know no matter what, it's going to be repeat business from them, and they'll eat from them pretty consistent basis. I also now with my Templeview connection, last year I bought one of the REOs from Templeview. So I'm very big on consistently, finding new creative ways of coming up with new deals to be able to buy them and renovate them. And as you've mentioned, some of them have been winners. Thankfully, a lot of them, and some of them have been losers, which I guess is good for my taxes. you got to find a positive in everything. But overall, though, I found that I've been just again shouting it out from the rooftop that you're a real estate investor looking for deals. Don't hide behind fear of not wanting to fail, or nervous that someone's not going to accept your offer. I mean, I've had instances, as I'll share with Mark earlier, where my offer was accepted when I came in almost $200,000 under the highest offer. My offer was accepted over someone else's. So you never know. All you have to do is ask. And if they say no, that's the worst thing that can happen to you. So I'm a big believer in that. And I just, proceed on.
And always understand that out there, not everything that you see is real life. I'm going to give you a good example of this. When I was an asset manager, I had a property in Las Vegas that we could not sell. It was a beat up house. and it did have like a empty, disgusting pool that was all green inside. It was on the market for almost 6 months, and we've dropped the price, no offers, nobody interested in this thing. And you really couldn't make money if you looked at the after repaired value or ARV. There was no upside in how and Ben, this, most asset management companies don't price the house low. They price it high. And
they want to make the max money. I get it.
All of a sudden we get this offer in, it was full price closing in 2 weeks, but we were like, I thought it was a joke. And my real estate agent
says, make any money. Yeah.
You're not going to make it. And they were like, no, hey, Mark, this is a good deal. They're doing a TV show, one of those fix and flip shows, Flip in Vegas, wherever it was. And they were doing it because they wanted to flip that house because it had a pool. I mean, it blew my mind. And of course I saw the episode and they go through the numbers, I always show the numbers at the end. It was, it was something where after renovation, they made a profit of like $10,000. And I'm looking at that thing and I'm like, that is such a scam and a lie. They have no numbers that show carrying costs, that show, the insurance cost, the acquisition money and the sale, right? There's no selling costs in there. And, there's no staging costs or marketing fees. Nothing was in there to really be able to say that was a profit. Obviously it was a huge loss, but I think the point I'm trying to make is you got to know your numbers in any fix and flip you're going to get involved in. Reach out to Ben and I. We have access to all of these calculators that we use. We want to give it to you guys as tools. And maybe most of the people on this webinar have their own tools. Have your calculators, know where those numbers are and where they fall. And also probably the biggest thing that I always will tell people is respect the time of anybody you deal with. Mm-hmm. And this is a lesson that we'll start talking about some of the contractors and different people that we have, and we've built those relationships with, is the ability to value someone else's time. Time is money. It is really money when you think about it, because if I'm investing my time into any flip that I'm going to do, I'm going to look at that as, can I make a money that's going to make it worth my time? What do you make per hour? Everyone reads the bigger pockets, like, what is your hourly rate? Those types of things. You should know what that is, but that also relates back to your time. And you think of that same perspective on anybody you deal with. For example, trying to find a contractor might be very daunting in this space, because good contractors are busy, really, really busy. Quick note, if you want to find someone quick, just go to Home Depot or Lowe's at like 5 o'clock in the morning and just take pictures of some of the cars there. A little quick note. But I digress. Once you get those pictures of those people, call them up and say, listen, I have a new project. However, I understand that you're busy and I value your time. So could I pay you whatever you want on your hourly rate to come to my next project that is, 123 Main Street, and whatever you want, $100, let him name his price, $500, him or her price, 500, whatever that is. There's now
up to a limit, obviously.
Well, Ben, to your point, I mean, again, whatever that price is, if it makes sense to you, call it a $500 price for him to come out and give you an actual bid. There's a contract that you just kind of entered into there. And so it's not just going to be a walkthrough and a quick bid. It's going to be, and this is what you should expect or set the expectation. Hey, I want to know, the flooring, in this room. It's an 18 by 20 foot room. And he gets his little, measurement tool and gives you that and say, well, this is going to be $3 a square foot. Oh, what if I wanted hardwood? Oh, it's $5 a square foot. And what you're doing there is you're taking your notes. You're talking about, how he came up with that, how you questioning, how you're doing the drywall there. This is one of the most important things that I did in way back several years ago, to really know what everything costs. And I'll throw this back to Ben because he has some funny stories with some of these wholesalers that you can see. Because, right now you'll see a wholesaler give you, $250,000 price, $50,000 in renovation, ARV 450, and they'll put a link to pictures. And when you look at those pictures, I mean, it is absolutely dreadful. And you could even do the numbers from pictures when you get really good at it. And you can say, oh, well, I got to paint that whole house. And that's an easy one. But like flooring, you can see what the kitchen looks like, how you can renovate that kitchen, the bathrooms, plumbing and electrical. Once you know what it costs to do those things, your number isn't 50. Your number is probably 85. And then you could be, very, very successful by knowing the numbers and not making the wrong offer on the wrong property. So, and share some of those tools that you've learned too, Ben, from your wholesaling dealings and even some of the things you've done.
Yeah. So yeah, as I was saying earlier, man, I have wholesaled in the past, and part of my experience always been, especially dealing with other wholesalers, the newer ones, you kind of can tell who they are when they're giving outrageous, repair estimates, which I'm like, well, you need a roof, windows, I got to paint the house, got to put a new kitchen in, and a bathroom in, and it's a 1,500 square foot house, and you tell me it's going to cost $50,000. And I usually joke with them, like, so you're going to come, provide me some labor with that? Or you can come paint the house for me or anything like that? And it's funny, I normally say that jokingly, but the reality of it is, when I've wholesaled properties in the past, I always looked at them as if, what would I flip this for? As a flipper, how much money would I want to make? And if I'm thinking of it as a flipper, I get the pricing in that way. I remember earlier in my career, when I would do deals, I would go online and try to look on Angie's List or homeadvisors.com and trying to get how much does it cost to put a roof in? How much does it cost to put a window in? How much does it cost to put floor in? It can carry a different estimate. And as I kept searching, I kept going down the rabbit hole, which I'm happy to share with some of you guys. Just feel free to reach out to me. But like, there's a ton of information, especially in this new information age, if you will, with Google, everything's available pretty much online. There's a lot of information available online that you can find to help you on top of what Mark's doing, because again, real estate is very local, right? So the pricing in, Mark's market in Maryland is vastly different than my pricing in North Jersey, right? Or maybe in Florida or in Texas and California, wherever you guys are. So you got to understand the pricing in your market, but at the same time, it's good to know overall what stuff costs. As you're talking to this guy, so you can know, all right, is this person full of hoo-ha, or is he, someone I want to work with? Because, some of these contractors, the minute you sound like you don't know what you're talking about, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. So you got to be really careful of it. That can throw your budget completely off, right? So that's one of the things I've done in my past. And I guess that's what kind of led me to also get my GC license, because I got tired of getting screwed and losing money with contractors. So I got my own GC license to at least be able to control who I hire and fire based on that. And they don't essentially control my permits, right? Because in my market in Jersey, I'm sure it's probably familiar, the same thing throughout the country. When you pull a permit with a GC, if you have a disagreement with the GC can literally walk into the town or city or municipality, pull their permit, say they're no longer working on this job, and the building department will then immediately go put a red sticker in your door. Stop work, stop everything, right? So I took that away after it happened to me once or twice. I took that away by pulling my own permits. I'm the GC on the project. Even if I go out there and hire another GC, I subcontract another GC to do the work, but I pull my own permits. I deal with that stuff. So this way I can have, if I have a disagreement with somebody, which happens, in this business, you can have the greatest person you work with, which is also an important point of knowing what's happening in your contractors' lives. And I know Mark is going to touch on that a bit. Taking care of them, being nice to them, treating them like human beings. They're a team member. They're doing well by you. It's not just a job. Taking care of them, even throw them a bonus at the end or something like that. Because ultimately, they have lives too. They may have stuff that's going on with them. They may want to grow their business and do more. And they may want to start flipping too. I'm more than happy to do a deal with them, right? I've done that in the past, even though it's burned me a few times, but I'll still continue to do that. The key is to understand what they're doing and help them grow with you, because then they may have issues. They may start taking on more projects and now disregarding yours. And the guy who was great, 2-3 deals ago is now the worst guy you have on your team, right? So you gotta be really careful about managing those relationships, making sure they're keeping them happy and part of your team. I know Mark wanted to touch on some other stuff you were saying, Mark.
No, absolutely. And so many things to take away from what Ben just said. But, one of the things I think I want to reiterate is GCs are very important to that job being successful. And when you have a GC and the GC is, one of the people I deal with are going to have crews, they manage those crews, they are on site for the whole time, and and that GC makes sure that gets done in a timely manner. My GCs, one of the things I would recommend is put a contract together with them. Treat it like a business. Say, hey, this is our pro forma. How long is it going to take you to do this flip? And that GC might look at me and say, Mark, it's going to take me 90 days to do this. It's not a whole lot. We can be done in 90 days. And then I would just, kind of put it out there. So you would think it's fair if I, put a contract together with you that says you're done in 120 days. And he'll say, yes, absolutely. I was like, well, let's go a step further. Because we're all in this to do the next deal and be successful and make money. So, I would like to position you that if you get it done in less than 120 days, you get a bonus. If you get it done more than 120 days, you're going to have to pay a per diem until it is complete. And we'll have a definition of what complete is. I mean, because punch out list basically means you're complete. You're marketing the property for sale. You're moving on to the next deal.
And there could be some permit issues too. So yeah, there's variables there as well.
Always delays. To your point, Ben, always delays. If a permit issue isn't cleared or something like that, then yes, I mean, we're reasonable people. But again, you're really trying to hedge against the guy that takes on 4 jobs and is drywall crew that's supposed to happen on your flip right now is on another job. That's what you're hedging against, but you're treating it like a business and you set the expectation. That contractor knows you mean business. And, I treat all of my guys with respect. We try to make it like I said, I'm not swinging hammers on all the, the personal flips I've done. And remember, I've been in part of hundreds of flips, but the ones I've invested my money in, I've never really swung a hammer. I'm not the guy laying flooring. I'm not painting. This is not what I do. I rely on the professionals to do that and manage that. That's the other thing, just manage it. I'm very curious, and I would presume if you're not good at something, get out there and ask the questions, get on your job site, and be curious on when the guy's doing the drywall. Be a student. I mean, because I'm a dad. I have, I have a house, right? I can get my contractors to come and do some stuff, but now, I want to do it myself. I want to be able to know how to do some things. So, these are the things I'm working on myself to be better on, because that's probably one of my worst things about me is that I really don't know what goes all into, the actual construction, how to do things. So to your point, Ben, I do treat everybody with respect. It's one of the most important things. People want to do business with people they like. It's the bottom line. If they like you, they're going to want to do business with you over and over again. We'll have events at the house for the workers. They come over, they can bring their kids, their families. We have like a little barbecue. We like to do this family environment. These are very, intricate tricks that I do to make sure when I have a job and I've put my money out and my risk, I get the crew that's going to be successful. In the lending space, going back from a Templeview perspective, one of the biggest failures that we have, other than the money issue, running out of cash, and when I say cash, being able to either pay for something that you didn't put in a pro forma statement, having an issue come up that you didn't know about, and not have enough reserves in your bank account to account for any issue that comes up, would be your contractor. Did the contractor perform on what he said he was going to perform? And I think once you can understand that that's so important and, come up with ways for them to, come up with their end of the bargain and meet the demands of that contract, you're going to be successful in this space. And Ben, we have about 10 or so minutes left. So I don't want to, I want you to end with another positive note on, another tidbit of on your side, which you would like some advice to somebody on this line, or something that, really propelled you to be very successful in your last flip.
Okay. So I would say, it really, I mean, it's as simple to me, right? Because I joke, I say it all the time. It's like a Benism at this point for me. I joke, I always say that the R in real estate stands for a relationship. All right. So the last deal I just got, as I mentioned, I got almost over $200,000 less than the highest offer. It's primarily based on a relationship. It's my buddy who's got me into the business, who talked to an agent that he built a relationship with, that made the agent feel more comfortable with my offer. It was an asset man, an REO, made the agent feel more comfortable with my offer than the highest offer they had on the table. So really going back to what you said before, everything in this business is related, interrelated. Whether you're dealing with contractors, you're dealing with your capital partners, you're dealing with your lenders, you're dealing with, you know, all your agents and your stager, everybody involved in that whole process. You got to treat them like human beings, treat like, you know, be a person of your word. You had mentioned that already, Mark. Be a person of your word. I got to a point in my career where I know people always know, even if I have to, and I hate to say this, even if I have to close a deal, I commit to close a deal and I messed up along the way, didn't do my due diligence the proper way, and realize, oh crap, I might not be able to make as much money as I initially thought. I still close. I have to close. I commit, I close, because everyone involved in that transaction, all right, gets fed by me. Unless it's one of those where, like, you know, it's a structural issue. I have it on my contract: structural, environmental, or mechanical. These are the 3 reasons why I'll back out of a deal. Outside of that, I put my word down. Even if I messed up, I realize I offered too much, or, you know, I messed up on my comp, or I messed up on my budget. That is on me, not on you. You did your job. I failed to do mine. So I can penalize you for that. So because I've kept that mindset throughout, I mean, last year, one of my best deals I did was a network, right? Someone had met at because I'm trying to get into the multifamily space now, just bought a 7-unit in Connecticut. Anyways, so this guy had met at a seminar way back when, wasn't first from Jersey, just like me. We kept in touch with Facebook, nothing serious. He reaches out to me because he sees me post and talk about real estate and so on and so forth. He reaches out to me, hey, Ben, you know, I have this deal and I don't want to do it because it's not my market. Would you be interested in getting it? I ended up picking it up for, I think, $210,000, closed on it, planned on renovating it, then decided, you know what, let me just list it as is. Listed the house as is, and ended up selling it for, I listed it for $399, actually, well, $299, ended up selling it for $361. I made over $100,000 in just a matter of 2 months. And it's primarily because a guy came to me, told me the deal. I built the relationship with him. He knew of me. We kept in touch. He made 20 grand. I made 100. And he's completely fine with that because I built the relationship. And that's the point. So ultimately, guys, I'm going to leave you with this. Really focus on your relationship and everything else will really work out. Back to you, Mark.
Yeah, no, we want to go to the people in this webinar. I want to, if anyone has any questions that we can answer right now. I think Kurt might come back on and.
Yep, I'm on, guys. First of all, great information. There's so many things that you were saying that I was nodding my head along as you were saying it. And a lot of it harkens back to, you know, you said that, you know, people want to do business with people they like. I couldn't agree more. To me, it's all like, trust, and respect. You know, I know a lot of times people say, well, it's no like and trust. I'm like, how well do you really know people? It's like trust and respect. I mean, I'm going to like you if I trust you and respect you. So it's interesting that there are still people out there that think that it's a transactional business, and nothing can be further from the truth. To me, the transaction is the sum part of the relationship. And then those transactions continue to do more. The more you expand your network, you do good by your partners, that's when you start having success. So I love that you guys point that out, but also something that people need to know. And I'm not saying that people on this call don't know, but for those that don't know, they need to hear it. This can be an ugly business sometimes. Yeah. It can be very ugly, you know, and we may look at a property and think, well, there's no way in hell I would live in that house. Cool. You're not going to. Doesn't mean somebody else wouldn't. So the fact that you have to understand as real estate investors, we're trying to solve problems first and foremost and solve them better than somebody else can. That's where it becomes lucrative. But it's the people that are willing to roll up their sleeves and get to work. Doesn't matter if the deal has some hair on it. Some people look at it, well, the more hair, the better. There's money and junk. But I think that that's a very important takeaway, is that it's not always going to be glamorous. It's not always going to be what you see on television. In fact, it's the exact opposite many times, most times. But as you get going and you start having success, the bad deals don't override your good deals. It's the opposite. You know, you can take some more risk because you've got so much cash flow on this side that if you lose money over here, you're not out anything really. So no, I think that you guys spoke a lot about the realities of a real estate investor, that you might lose money. Oh, so what? Everybody has. That's not. But
tuition right?
Right-off
is what I love, because it's like when I'm finishing up my master's degree, and I can still remember starting that, or starting college, or anything new. it's scary when you don't know all the answers. It's scary when you don't know how it's going to turn out. And the only way that you know that is through the experience. So you fail forward, as the old expression goes. So no, I loved it and couldn't agree more.
And Kurt, so from the chat, there was 2 questions that I saw. I'm just going to address them real quick. The first question is the contract, the contract to the contractor. And I feel like that question is however you want to do it. I have like a eforms.com is a website that I get a lot of my legal documents that I want to put together for people. It's pretty easy to just formulate something that they'll sign. It really comes down to the signature. A lot of the people I deal with, I trust. Like Kurt said earlier, I mean, trust is everything. Your word is everything in this space. And so I think that is something to, just put something in writing, have them sign it. There was a question about builder's risk insurance. I've gone through several different companies. I think it's most important, again, one of the tools in your belt and one of the relationships you need to have is your insurance broker. Templeview does offer some referrals to insurance companies that we like to use. When you hit us up, we can give you those referrals, of course. But you got to have your builder's risk policies in play and to cover yourself and to protect yourself. And then Kurt, there's a question about the recording of the webinar there.
Yeah, I see that. I'm typing along right now. Yes, it is being recorded. It will be on our YouTube channel and thinkrealty.com tomorrow once we've had a chance to edit things. So yeah, it's definitely being recorded and it'll be able to be viewed for future viewings as well.
Awesome. And just on the screen, we put together we put together a book. It's a fix and flip. It's an ebook that you can get that QR code. It talks about some of the things that we spoke about today. So you just scan that and you have access to some knowledge there. And the other thing is we can't publish this, but if you reach out to myself or Ben over the next couple of weeks, as long as we get a deal in this month, we're going to give you an 1/8 off of your fix and flip loan. Whatever the published rate that we have is at the time, you will be an 1/8 lower just by mentioning this webinar, this podcast. But we have to get it in by the end of the month. All righty.
Now this is, again, only myself and Mark. Don't call the company and ask us. We'll get our ears stuck because we're supposed to do this, but it's essentially, us offering this for you guys because we're very, honored that you took the time out of your long day today to listen to us speak on this. And that's a gift. That's a personal gift that both Mark and I are giving to you guys.
Yep. And it is not a Templeview thing. It is a Mark and Ben thing. So just want to make sure you guys know that. If you call our 1-800 number, no one else is going to be able to offer that just for the next couple of weeks.
Just again,
scan that QR code, everyone, right now.
Yeah.
Good question here from Lance. What are your thoughts about medium-term rentals versus short-term rentals versus long-term rentals? I got a hunch that might depend on jurisdiction, legislation, market.
Yeah, and your goals. But my opinion on this, I mean, I'll take this one, Mark, if you don't mind. My opinion on this, honestly, is everything's probably going to go towards more medium and long-term, unless Airbnb figures out a way to pay the piper. That's my opinion. If the government can find a way to collect their fees from that and be happy with it, it's going to come back around in full force. Until then, probably not.
Now, Kurt, you guys we can maybe do another one of these. I could spend another hour talking about this exact question. And we can have Lance reach out. I'd be happy to go over that with you directly. But in general, I think that just a quick rule of thumb: know where you're investing, know where there's going to be an so much product in the hotel space, like places like New York, for example. If this is very new, New York just banned all short-term rentals. You can't even own one in New York anymore. And the reason why is because, yeah, Philly. So the rents are so high, rent control is so high. To rent somewhere, it's almost $5,500 a month in New York City. And it's because of the arbitrage. So people renting, and this could be a good teaser for the webinar, Kurt, just on
Exactly.
for the short-term rental. But the arbitrage. So people putting something under lease and then putting it on short-term rental, making a lot of money doing that. So it's being banned in all these places. But the markets that I invest in for my short-term rentals are places that it really has a lack of hotels, a lack of lobbyists for the hotel market. You might need a permit, like in Ocean City, Maryland, in Delaware and Deep Creek. These are places I invest in and have a lot of my properties. I know it very well. I know the law very well. And I know that there's not enough inventory to meet the demand. And so those are going to be the areas that I'm going to invest in. Midterm rentals and things like that are really good in different types of markets, near hospitals, near a workforce. And there's a term that we're starting to coin right now called workforce housing. And this is another, category that's coming out because in big cities, there's not enough workers. And so they have to come in. And so if you can have a property that fits that mold, you can call it workforce housing, and you're going to be able to get a lot more revenue coming into your rental property because you can build this. It's not like border income, but you can build out a house with multiple places to stay. But yeah, I'd love to talk to you guys more about that for sure. I'm seeing a few other questions full in here. Questions about the W-9 as a part of your contract agreement. Basically, yes. You gotta absolutely get the W-9 because you gotta give him a 1099 at the end of the year because you've paid him a lot of money to do your work. So that's part of our package. Conditions for foreign investors, absolutely. That would be something that it would be another guideline to talk through. QR code to scan.
It's
What's
up right
QR?
now, yeah. The QR code's up right now. To get
Ben
more
and
information.
Mark's both is up right now.
Mm-hmm. What is the advantages you offer on rehab loans? What advantage? Okay, so the advantages of our rehab loans, essentially we talked about earlier. I think that's maybe what you're talking about is possibly the QR code for our programs for Templeview. That's probably what we can put up real quick, which would be, I'm sorry, right here. So the down payment for our loans is going to vary between 20% down and 10% down, depending on your experience. And remember, the way that we structure our loans is we're not source or seasoning your funds to close. So if you do a joint venture or go to a local meetup and take on a partner, that partner can invest into your deal and they can be a part of it because we also look at that as a checks and balance. You as an investor that takes on a partner, we look at it as making that deal stronger. Someone else is checking you, helping you. And so we do want that to happen and occur. With our advanced draw feature on someone that qualifies for that program, you will be able to, with the fact that your payments are included in our loans, we'll have the ability to do a complete cash flow statement the whole time. You'll know exactly where your cash is. You're 10% down. And then you have an advanced draw for your first draw. So you don't have to come out of pocket to pay the contractor. You're going to get that from Templeview. And then you're going to be ahead of your draw schedule the entire time that you do that renovation. And that really helps you keep money in your pocket. And one of the best things that we see, it keeps your contractor happy because he's going to have money ahead of the time when he normally would expect it. So that's another good feature of our fix and flip loans.
I see one last question here. What is the max ARV you land on? 75. That is correct. And the reason why we do this is it allows us to be able to bake in all your escrow payments into the loan. So if you're using the standard formula, which Mark kind of alluded to during the webinar, 70% of ARV minus your repair costs should be your purchase price. If you're utilizing that formula, now with us going up to 75, that extra 5% essentially covers all your monthly payments and the loan. So you're not bringing that to close, assuming you get a good deal. You're not bringing that to close, and that allows us to be able to escrow in there. And if you're in and out of a project, let's say in 6 months, at closing, we're giving you back that 6 months. So it's a really, really good product in that sense, and really allows for the experienced investors to fly through these projects.
Yep. And another good question. Seasoning to hold before your takeout financing available. The seasoning is 0. All right. If you buy a house and you renovate that house, you do not have to wait 6 months, 12 months to get a DSCR loan, or it's called a debt service coverage loan. So if you're going to keep it as a hold or a rental or short-term rental or whatever it is, all we have to do is prove that you did the renovation, and that's easy, right? Because we did the renovation loan. And so there's no seasoning at all if you're doing a renovation loan with us. You can refinance in 2 months, 90 days, whatever you want. When the house is ready, I do say to people, if you're going to keep it as a hold, you want to make sure you do get it rented. Remember, during the renovation loan, you do not have a mortgage payment. So it's a little bit, you're using that future value to basically make that payment. So you're not going to have a financial burden while you're trying to find a tenant. So you have all those escrowed payments, you find your tenant, and then that's going to give you max leverage. We can actually go to 80% rate and term, or you can go to 75% cash out on that rental. And then you can use, of course, current value. That's the other key, is some lenders won't let you use the new appraised value. They'll make you use purchase price. We'll let you use the new appraised value once you've added the value to the house.
Yes, and the other thing too, though, just to add on to what Mark just said regarding that, it's a slight nuance. If you just bought something, you got a good deal and did nothing to it, and you try to refinance to pull cash out, there is some seasoning there. But
Yes.
if you're just doing a rate and term, it doesn't matter. But for cash out, we do have one. I believe it's 6 months. I'll have to double check the guidelines, but there is some seasoning if you haven't done any work. But if you've done work and you can prove that you've done the work, then yes.
Cool. Awesome.
Awesome stuff, guys. Oh, one more question. This will Scott from
yes.
Florida. Yes.
Affirmation, that's all.
That's approval. Yeah, not a question, approval. Guys, thank you both so much. Just incredible amount of information. And I think a lot of people are going to walk away with the tools that they need. But I think the most important tool of all is that Temple View and you gentlemen in particular, you've done this before so many times yourselves personally. And I think that's the thing when we're doing our due diligence that we got to remember, guys and girls that are on this call, is that you want to do business people like, trust, respect, sure, but you also want to do business with people who are actively doing business as well, that understand what you're going through, understand the pain that you're going to go through, understand the successes that you're going to go through. And Temple View, they've been around long enough and funded enough loans that they are a business of people that are doing this actively, and they change with the times as well. So Mark and Ben, I can't thank you guys enough. This was phenomenal. Oh, one more question. We'll get one more in. What is the experience requirements for the GUC?
Yeah, and this is another great topic, Kurt, is the ground up construction.
It's feeding our education platform, man. I love it.
Well,
I love it.
Ground up is probably our biggest and fastest growing product, and it's just because of the inventory play. Ground up is a different animal altogether. So I won't take a big winded, jump into ground up product, but you need to have 5 deals underneath your belt. One of the 5 needs to be a ground up project. And there's different ways that we help new investors get into that space through some joint venture opportunities, but definitely not something as a newbie. If you've never flipped a house, don't even be thinking ground up.
No.
So
I love it. Well, I think we know what our next 2 webinars with Temple View are going to be covering. So
yes.
We're going to have another packed house for that. Certainly look forward to it. Guys, I can't thank you enough. I look forward to seeing you. If I don't see you in Las Vegas, if I don't see you, I'm mentioning all the events because I know we're at every single event when we see you guys there. We'll definitely see you in November at AAPL. We'll definitely see you guys in Phoenix in March for Think Realty. But Absolutely. In the meantime, guys, thank you so much. This webinar will go back on our YouTube channel and thinkrealty.com tomorrow. So if you've missed it, if you want to go back and rewatch it, it will be available starting tomorrow. But I can't thank Temple View enough. Mark, Ben, you guys are pros. I appreciate you both so much. Thank you.
Good pleasure.
All right. Thanks, guys. We're looking forward to
hearing from you. Be safe out there. Let's have some fun. Let's make some money and let's be successful and let's do it all together. Appreciate everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.